You had Max Verstappen in a few weeks ago.
He was impressed, and we all are aiming to be at the front.
What do your old pals at Mercedes make of you doing this?
The 170 that came with me are pretty happy about it. You show me someone that's confident in this sport, and I'll show you someone that's about to lose.
Welcome to the Inside Track, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of Formula One through our exclusive access to Red Bull Racing. I'm host and sports journalist Matt Majendie, and today we're joined by the technical director of Red Bull Powertrains, Ben Hodgkinson. We're here to discuss how the team are building their engines in-house for the first time for the 2026 season. Ben, thanks very much for joining us on the podcast. I was chatting to Laurent Mekies the other day, and he said it's crazy what Red Bull are doing. I think he meant it in a good way. I just wondered, what's your view?
I mean, crazy is a great word for it, really. I think I always knew it was a pretty bold decision to start a power unit project. As a mere fizzy drink company, as we say, and it was how audacious and bold that was that made me really want to get involved.
So is that the bit that then lures you across from Mercedes?
I think so. The challenge of it is pretty exciting. I've been watching Formula One for a very long time, and I've always thought that if power unit and chassis can coexist on one campus, then there's some advantage that you can extract from it. I know Ferrari are really the only other ones that do it, but I wondered whether we could do it better. Also, I've been at Mercedes for a long time, and just the opportunity of creating something from scratch was very, very appealing. I guess I'm a design engineer and have been for many years, and design engineers always long for that clean sheet of paper. I now got to have a go at a clean sheet of paper on an entire company. So yeah, I mean, it's a perfect opportunity, I think, once in a lifetime.
So are you in constant liaison with Pierre then, Pierre Vacher? Is that how it works?
Yeah, we meet regularly. We have a couple of times a week we have a session, and then we have other contact points with a wider group of our technical team to make sure that we're aligned. It's fair to say that in the first year and a bit or 2 years of me being at Powertrains, there wasn't much liaison. There was a little bit of direction setting, but not much, because as the regulations are written for chassis, they weren't really allowed to start working on it until the beginning of this year. So therefore, there wasn't a lot of interaction between engineers that could be happening. But the gestation period of a power unit is kind of quite a long time. So really, we're 4 years deep into this one now, and so I needed to start work on something before I kind of could do the real interactions. But they started in vigor from January this year.
With the team like pushing and the upgrades for this season and keeping Max's championship hopes alive, does that have any impact on you at Powertrains or not?
Indirectly, I guess it does. It's not a huge impact. I mean, one of the things that is both an advantage and disadvantage for us as Powertrains and as an effective power unit manufacturer newcomer, our advantage is that we don't have a current program to distract us. So 100% of my staff are focused on the 26. The downside is we've had to do everything from scratch. So we've had to build 3 factories and find over 500 people and get them all working together in a coherent way. And so while others have got a very established structure that they could start developing engines straight away, we had to build a factory and then develop our power unit. So there's advantages and disadvantages, but you really try to lean into the advantage, and that absolute laser focus on what is 26 is something we hope will pay off.
I wonder at this stage, you said it's been 4 years in the making. Does it at this point feel like a race against time?
It does. I mean, it's felt like that really from very early on. One of the things that I felt was important was to always talk about the pace at which we need to get things done. One of the things that I almost had to create an artificial drumbeat for is when you're in season, every race weekend gives all of you and your teammates a reminder of what it's all about and why the urgency is important. And it's harder to motivate an entire company when you're out of season. So you put in milestones, and you put in you celebrate your successes, and so you sort of create this cadence to try and keep that pace really high. But it really is the case that the more development experiments we can do between now and going racing, the better we'll be, further up the grid will be. So it is trying to create that loop as short and as fast as possible of idea to result is what it's all about.
And so where are you then at this stage?
Gosh, that's a very tricky question to answer. Honest answer, we don't know. I know exactly where we are compared to the targets that I set. And if the targets are good enough to make us competitive, then we'll be in quite a good place. But whether my targets were aggressive enough, I don't know. So I've described it before as like it's a 400-meter race. And I chose 400 meters particularly because 400 meters is still a sprint and it feels like a sprint. But you're in the stadium on your own, competing against another runner that's in another stadium in a different city, also running, and you've got to work out who's ahead, and we'll only find out in Australia.
Are you concerned? Are there things you're worried about at this stage?
Yeah, I mean, how long have you got? There's so much I'm worried about. You worry about the decisions you make, and you have to make decisions with an incomplete data set. I mean, it's almost if I was to look up what the definition of a technical leader in this industry, it's someone that makes decisions without a complete data set. And at this level, it gets even more crazy because, I very much believe in some of the ideologies of famous leaders like Steve Jobs and Elon Musk, who says that you've got to get brilliant people around you and let brilliant people do their brilliant things. But when you do that, the only problems that they bring to you are the problems that brilliant people can't solve. And you're expected to be able to solve them, and you're doing it with an incomplete data set. So do I worry? Yeah, permanently. Worry is a permanent feature of this job.
Are there sort of sleepless nights or even recurring dreams you have of the car not starting or something?
You've got to remember how long I've been doing this for. Nowadays, Formula One's so big that your teams are large and the work is intense. But when there was just 3 people designing your WRC engine and something goes wrong, all 3 of you are in all night until it's fixed. I've only ever known designing engines and power units that compete, and I absolutely love it.
You had Max Verstappen in a few weeks ago. I wonder what did he make of the progress?
I think he was impressed with where we were. We was able to show him just how much hardware is going through our build shops and on our dynos. He was able to see some running engines doing laps. So he got to hear what the 26 power unit would sound like. I guess he'll be hearing that just behind his head for quite a number of hours. So it was the first time he got to hear exactly what it sounded like. I think he was impressed. He was normally, when I show people around, they're kind of flabbergasted at the amount of detail that we go into. This is an exceptional facility put together by a group of really exceptional people. And the level of detail we go into on every single element, I think, is absolutely vital in trying to get where we aspire to get on the grid and on the podium. But when you share that detail with somebody, their mind's blown. I can't quite believe how many elements that we dissect.
Because he's got quite a technical brain, Max.
Yeah, he has got a great understanding. I'm sure that's part of his advantage, to be honest. And he was asking lots of really intelligent questions as we went around. He really wanted to know more about certain bits that we were talking about, and it was a real pleasure to tell him more about it.
Did it feel like he was sort of challenging you in a positive way?
Yeah, I guess a little bit. He was he was certainly very keen to point out how important it is to have the performance. But I mean, he knew that, and so I guess he very quickly realised that he was walking around with like-minded individuals. I mean, we all are aiming to be at the front. That is the only thing that is success, and anything else isn't good enough. So that's what we're pushing for.
Has he been able to have much input, Max?
To date, no. But as from sort of now onwards, definitely, as we start getting him in the simulator and he starts working out exactly how he wants to drive this thing, it's got an interesting energy management challenge on this new power unit, and it's going to require a different set of skills from our drivers. I think it's an opportunity to Max to further separate himself from the pack, to be honest, because I think it's going to be tricky to extract the optimum lap time out of it and how you drive it. So I'm really looking forward to Max getting into that. He will certainly be giving us feedback about how things could be a bit easier or simpler or easier to extract the optimum.
So it could be a rule change that ends up being to Red Bull and Max's advantage in the end.
Well, that's certainly what we're hoping.
Yes, sure.
We're trying to make that so. Yeah, I mean, like I said, starting from scratch when you have to build factories and find all the people is a disadvantage. The starter pistol's gone off, everyone else is sprinting, and you're digging foundations. But I've been able to have a really good think about what I think the perfect factory would look like for what I know the 26 regulations were going to be. And I do think that our facilities are state of the art. So I'm sure that will give us an advantage.
But the perception in the paddock is that Mercedes are going to be the front runners. They're going to have the best power unit. This is a team, obviously, you know very well. What's your take? Do you think that's the case?
I think they're likely to be doing well. It's a good company with some good people in it, and they've got an awful lot of experience. I think quite a lot of the power unit is similar to the current generation. They were probably able to start testing way before we were. For sure, that gives them a very large advantage. They're something like over 20,000 components in a power unit, and normally when you go from one season to the next, you might design or redesign about 600 of them. But what we've had to do is draw every single one, and so that's quite a lot of work at the beginning. So where we are now, I'm fairly confident that we're probably developing faster than them. I think we started behind them, so it's just this race into who's going to be ahead by race one. I'm definitely not confident. I think you show me someone that's confident in this sport, and I'll show you someone that's about to lose. So I think confidence is a real mistake because you don't actually know where you are. But I think what I can be confident in is I'm confident in the support I've got from Red Bull, the support I've got from Ford, the team that I've built and the facilities that we've got. I'm confident in all of that. I think we've made the right decisions. It's just where we are on that race. We'll have to wait and see.
I mean, can you be front runners from the start?
I've got to believe that's possible. Aiming at anything else is just not what you do. If you're playing archery, you aim at the middle of the target, right? It's just what you do.
What do your old pals at Mercedes make of you and Red Bull doing this?
The 170 that came with me are pretty happy about it.
By taking that number from there, does that dent Mercedes and their chances? Does that derail them in any way? Or?
Hopefully. I'd be disrespecting the people that came with me to say it wouldn't, and let alone myself. They must have had to recover the numbers to get back onto the staffing levels that they needed. Recovering numbers gives them a nice opportunity to get some fresh thinking in. Fresh thinking is always really healthy in a sport where innovation can make the difference. It certainly didn't ruin their chances. Yeah, sure, it gave them a challenge.
If you could put it in layman's terms, what's new for 2026 then from your perspective?
The split between ICE and ERS, so internal combustion engine and energy recovery system, is closer to 50-50 than it ever was. So it's about 3 times the power of the MGU-K, which means you end up having a K of very similar power to the ICE, which means energy becomes much more important, because how long the K stays on is a function of how much energy that you manage to keep, and being energy optimum around a lap is really important. So how much performance difference it will be. So the 50-50 split is a really big part of it. Using fully sustainable fuels is another massive part. I think 100% electrification of the transport industry, I don't think is right, honestly. And I think a split between them is perfect. So it's great that the investment is going into making sustainable fuels a real viable alternative without having to rely on fossil fuels. And it'd be brilliant if Formula One could demonstrate to the world that you can still have high-performing powertrains even with fully sustainable fuel. But the fully sustainable stuff gives you challenges that it doesn't evaporate quite as easy. It leaves some sticky residue once it's burnt, and so it's a trickier thing in creating some new challenges which I've never really had before. So, but I guess it's what keeps it interesting for me. But it's definitely a new thing to try and solve. The other challenge is, whilst it's still turbocharged, the MGU-H has been removed, which was the electric motor that used to sit inside the turbo. So that means you can't gain any energy from your exhaust gases, which we used to be able to do. But it also means that keeping the turbo span up is really challenging. So, and lag problems just weren't a problem in the current generation of Formula One power units, because you had the electric motor there to keep the turbo spinning whenever you wanted. Now we're having to employ quite a lot of clever strategies to be able to keep the turbo spinning, so that we don't have any lag issues coming out of a corner. So I think the turbo lag story, the 50-50 split, and then the fully sustainable fuels, those are the key 3 bits that need explaining. I think the turbo lag personally could make it really interesting to watch. I think the starts are going to be really challenging. Getting the thing spun up and on boost on the start line is going to be a spectacle, I think.
So, talking about that then, so will we see a situation where cars won't even get off the line potentially with that in mind?
I think there's a chance there's going to be bigger differences in the launch than we're used to at the moment. Obviously, we're putting quite a lot of work into that to try and make sure that we are in a position to get it all spun up. We've got this 5-second window to do it before the light sequence starts. When you're told it's about to go and you've got 5 seconds, which isn't quite long enough, is where it is interesting where it's been pitched, and I think that could lead to some big deltas in the launch, which I think will make it really interesting.
That'd be amazing though, because you could have like someone having an absolute flyer from the back and the person on the front having a howler of a start, for example.
Yeah, exactly. We've also been a little bit restricted by how much fuel we're allowed to burn in the exhaust for anti-lag reasons, which I think is a real shame personally. I get it because it's not the environmental message. You could have flames licking out the back of the exhaust, which doesn't look very environmental.
Do you envisage a point of cars, breaking down or cars not starting, things like that? Because we've got so used to reliability being so good at the end of these regulations.
When you've got a change in regulations, the first year is the hardest year to achieve the reliability that we hold ourselves to account to. Is that getting your answer?
That's fair enough. I'll take that.
I'm still aiming at not needing any extra power units and having no issues. That's success for me.
Have you got a biggest concern for the car?
Precise details of exactly how we're allowed to use the energy and what power levels we're allowed to use on the K are all still a little bit fluid and up for debate. As the drivers are starting to do simulated laps, they're a bit concerned at how that's going to play out. And so it depends where we end up with the regulations, but it's possible we could end up with quite, I suspect it's going to take quite a lot of time, engineering time and quite a lot of airtime discussing energy management, which I'm not really sure is where the sport should go.
Can I ask, sort of goes back to what we were talking about before, why it's so bold and unusual for Red Bull to be doing this?
I guess you see new teams start up quite a few times in the past over history, and they always talk about a kind of a glide path into the sport where they say stuff publicly like, for the first year, we just want to be able to turn up and drive around. Next year, we want to be in the top 10. And then the year after that, we'll want to be challenging. They have this glide path. But that is not the Red Bull way. We're aiming at being at the front. I'd love it to be a tooth and nail battle with my old team. That would be incredible. So I guess what makes it so bold is the fact that Red Bull is the best Formula One team in the world, and now they want to do their own power unit, and the bar is incredibly high.
How does the Ford partnership work? If you can talk about that, because it's sort of obviously a massive company that you're in conjunction with on this.
Ford have been a very helpful partner. They've given enough freedom to, the power unit development is led and based here in Milton Keynes, but they are a huge organisation with amazing capability. Their capability in the manufacturing space we've taken advantage of. Before we were built, we was able to use some of their facilities. Like we tested our turbos on a Ford facility before we had our own turbo test facility. And they've been able to open the door because of their buying power. Nowadays, if you want to buy any electronic components, because the EV market is exploding, the big companies won't really talk to you if you're too small, but they will talk to Ford. So it's been really helpful to have them on our side for sure.
Brilliant. Well, thanks very much, Ben, for joining us. I really appreciate it on the Inside Track podcast, and good luck for the race against time, the ensuing weeks and months ahead. Rick and I will be back next week to review all the drama from Las Vegas and provide some exclusive insider insight as always from Team Red Bull. The Inside Track is funded and made by BBC Studios, a commercial company that's wholly owned by the BBC. Video editing and social media by Georgina Revel, and James Cook is the executive producer.